Hey everyone, tonight we're stepping into a chapter of human history your school textbooks never dared to cover. No kings, no castles, no pyramids, not even Rome. Just earth, silence and bones. Picture yourself on a lonely hillside. The air is damp, a thin fog clings to the ground, and everything is unnervingly quiet. Trees barely stir, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. Beneath your feet, just a few meters down, lie not one or two, but hundreds of skeletons, some without skulls, some twisted unnaturally, some still locked in each other's final embrace. No gravestones, no names, just bones, and a single, unshakable question: what happened here? Your mind doesn't know, but your body remembers. Because this wasn't a small tragedy. It was global. You're alive because one of your distant male ancestors somehow survived, but dozens of his brothers, cousins, and uncles didn't. The genetic evidence is shockingly clear. Something between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago nearly erased men from the human story. Before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this kind of late-night history, and let me know your local time and where you're watching from down in the comments. It's strangely comforting knowing we're all falling asleep together. Now dim the lights, turn on a fan if you have one, and let's drift into the past. You push through dew-soaked grass in a quiet European valley, but you're not in the present anymore. You're walking in an in-between place halfway between now and never, chasing echoes from an age that left behind no stone cities, no golden crowns, only fragments, only whispers carved into your very DNA. Think of your body as a library. Your genes are its scribbled footnotes, your chromosomes the fragile parchment. And in those pages, scientists discovered something unsettling, a flaw, repeating itself like a typo copied 1,000 times. It shows up in the Y chromosome of nearly every man alive today. The Y chromosome, tiny, stubborn, and fragile, is passed almost unchanged from father to son, generation after generation, a whisper of continuity. But sometime 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, those whispers nearly went silent. Completely. How do we know? By studying today's populations, women from that time left behind a rich, varied genetic trail. But men? Their lineages collapsed into a narrow funnel. It's called a genetic bottleneck. Sounds harmless, like a traffic jam on some forgotten road, but it means something far worse: extinction. Within just a few generations, almost every male bloodline vanished. Historians argue over why. Was it plague, climate disaster, or something more deliberate, systematic killing? Whatever it was, it stretched across Africa, Europe, and Asia. Not a skirmish, not a coincidence, a pattern. And here's the haunting part. It left no written record. Because writing hadn't even been invented yet, the greatest demographic collapse ever to strike one half of humanity came and went, and nobody wrote a word about it. No scribes, no chronicles, just silence, just bloodlines that ended, except yours. Somehow, impossibly, yours survived. That makes you, well, statistically speaking, a miracle. Your father's father's father, countless times over, carried his fragile line through that storm. He escaped the blade, the sickness, the chaos. But 19 men standing beside him didn't. If history had tilted even slightly, you wouldn't exist. No you, no me. No sleepy story to drift off to tonight. Why did he survive? Maybe luck. Maybe he belonged to a clan that crushed its rivals and claimed the survivors. That's one of the darker theories. Because the bottleneck wasn't natural, it may have been man-made. A prehistoric purge, A war so complete it didn't just kill, it erased entire lineages, and it didn't strike everywhere equally. Some remote regions escaped. That means it wasn't global climate, not the Ice Age, not a plague. It was selective, human, intentional. We like to imagine prehistoric war as cartoonish, men with clubs, clumsy fights in loincloths. But this was organized, sustained, catastrophic. The scale is chilling, and the cruelest part? To erase a bloodline, you don't need to kill every man, just enough. After that, nature finishes the job. Meanwhile, the women of that time carried on, their genetic signatures weaving forward without interruption. Balanced, steady, unbroken. So, what happened to the men? That's the mystery we're stepping into next. But for now, lie back. Let the fog settle in your mind. Picture a time before memory, before history, before records, when the only score was who kept breathing. Now the scene shifts. You're no longer in a valley, but inside the sterile white walls of a genetics lab. Servers hum softly, keys click in the quiet. Here the past isn't uncovered with shovels, but with data. Strands of DNA mapped out like stars in a prehistoric sky. And among them, the silence of all the men who never made it through. Scientists lean over test tubes and glowing computer screens, piecing together a mystery no living person remembers. What they uncover isn't just odd, it's statistically impossible to ignore. Most of us imagine prehistory as a time of slow progress, migrations, farming, small villages, steady evolution. But the Y chromosome tells another story, one of violent collapse, a sudden brutal narrowing, a bottleneck so severe it nearly erased men from the map of humanity. Genomic studies reveal that between 5,000 and 7,000 years ago, male genetic diversity across huge parts of Eurasia and Africa plunged by as much as 95%. Think about that. For every 20 distinct male lineages alive before this event, only one made it through. The other 19 disappeared. No monuments, no records, no artifacts, just silence in the DNA. Meanwhile, women's lineages flowed on undisturbed. Mitochondrial DNA, the maternal thread, shows no such collapse, which means it wasn't humanity as a whole under threat. It was specifically men. From Ireland to India, Turkey to Tanzania, the same ghostly fingerprint appears in the record, men vanishing en masse. Historians still argue, was this a single simultaneous disaster, or a wave of destruction spreading tribe by tribe as the Neolithic world shifted? Either way, the signal is clear. One analysis found the crash sharper than anything recorded in written history, more devastating than famine, plague, or even the Black Death. This wasn't attrition. It was annihilation. And here's the strangest part. The rest of the genome kept moving along normally. Only the Y chromosome shows this collapse, like a machine running perfectly, except for one wire suddenly snapping, one line of continuity cut. Researchers suggest possibilities. Was male infanticide rampant? Did cultures restrict reproduction to a narrow group of elite men? Or was it war, a targeted campaign against male lineages, erasing bloodlines, one ambush, one massacre, one village at a time? The Y chromosome makes it easy. Unlike most DNA, it doesn't shuffle or mix. It passes nearly unchanged from father to son, which makes it a perfect record, and also frighteningly easy to erase. Kill the men of a lineage in one generation, and their genetic thread ends instantly. We know it happens. Consider Genghis Khan. His unique Y marker is found in millions of men today. His lineage exploded outward, reshaping the genome itself. Now imagine the reverse, not one lineage expanding, but millions collapsing inward. Not success, but extermination. Geneticists call this a bottleneck, and the graph looks terrifying. A flat, stable line, and then a vertical drop, almost to nothing. Then, slowly, the survivors climb back, a few narrow branches regrowing into a forest. Imagine all of humanity's male heritage squeezed through a single, fragile hourglass. Somehow, your ancestors made it through. There's a strange comfort in that thought, that you're here because someone thousands of years ago ducked when the blow came, or hid in the right cave, or just happened to be in the right place at the right time. But maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe it was power. One theory, sometimes called the social selection hypothesis, suggests that early societies already favored dominant clans. Men who controlled land, food, or resources passed on their genes far more widely than others. Everyone else? They faded. It's like a prehistoric Game of Thrones, but with barley instead of dragons, irrigation instead of iron, and stone axes instead of swords. It's a chilling thought, that a few clans could wipe out their rivals so thoroughly that they reshaped the genetic destiny of mankind. But maybe that's exactly what happened. This is where hard data gives way to speculation. Maybe the men died in battle. Maybe they were executed after surrender. Maybe enslaved, sacrificed, or simply cut out of reproduction. We'll never know for sure. But one thing is certain, their lines never returned. And here you are, lying in the quiet dark, your Y chromosome glowing faintly inside you, like a torch passed through countless generations. Not just alive, but improbable. A survivor by inheritance, 1 out of 20. Step out of the lab, leave the computer models behind. You're back in the mud and cold. Because while DNA tells you that something happened, the ground holds the evidence of what? Mass graves, not monuments of glory, but pits of hurried burial. Whole communities silenced, bones cracked, skulls missing, children and elders thrown together, dumped like refuse. Picture Talheim, a quiet German field. In 1983, archaeologists uncovered 34 skeletons there. Men, women, children, all murdered. Skulls crushed, bones broken, wounds in their backs, not their fronts. They weren't fighting, they were fleeing. Families butchered and tossed together. Wait for part 2. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for part 2. Join us for more videos.